There is a reason your physique doesn't look the way you want it to following those generic intermediate training programs. A few years ago, I was exactly like you. I followed the cookie cutter programs like 5x5, Texas Method, and stuff like that. And my physique looked like shit. I listened to the advice that squat, bench, and deadlift was enough to build a good physique, that I needed to eat as much as possible to grow, I needed to gain a bunch of weight to get strong and jacked, and I ended up looking like this. I had a belly, I had small arms, and I didn't even look like I lifted. And my friends were asking me if I'd had time off the gym and stuff like that. So, in this video, I want to help you get strong whilst also building an aesthetic physique so that you can avoid the mistakes that I made and actually look like you lift. So, if you would like a step by step program to follow, take the workout of it for you, top link in the description, and that will help you out. So, why are these intermediate training programs not great for getting you jacked? You have to understand these programs were written years ago by more old school strength training guys. So people like Jim Wendler and Mark Rippetoe, like, do you really think they give a shit about the medial head of your delt or your abs or your V-taper and stuff like that? Like, that stuff wasn't really a thing back then, and these guys aren't really guys who are training for like aesthetics and for physique purposes. They didn't write these programs to have you looking jacked. And it's why there are so many memes about people who run these programs end up with this like skinny fat appearance. They get mediocre levels of strength and they don't really look like they lift. Now, the two main reasons why these programs don't really get you jacked is number one, they assume that the squat, the bench, the deadlift are enough to build an aesthetic physique, which they're not. And you have to consider that we're doing the squat, the bench, the deadlift on these programs with the goal of maximizing efficiency. Like, we're doing low bar squats, barely to parallel. We're doing wide grip bench presses with an arch in our back. And some of you are doing sumo deadlifts if you like cheating. And all of these things are like reducing range of motion. They're reducing the stimulus on the muscle for growth. And that's why you aren't really growing. Then reason number two, the bodybuilding element of these programs is either non-existent or it's just like tacked on the end as like, oh, just do it if you feel like it, or just do a 4x10 or do a 4x12 on a bicep curl or a row or something like that. And because of that, because there's no real structure or periodization to the bodybuilding stuff, it doesn't get pushed or it gets skipped or it just gets half-assed. You get a quick pump and a burn and it doesn't really make a dent in your progress. And over time, you don't really see much difference in muscle growth. Now, if we know that these programs aren't great for muscle growth, we need to take a different approach. So the approach that I currently take with myself and my clients, and kind of my philosophy around this stuff, I think that a good strength training program is essentially a good bodybuilding program with intelligent squat, bench, deadlift programming. That's all it is. And I think a lot of you who are interested in strength training should be training a lot more like bodybuilders. We basically need to do the squat, the bench, and the deadlift just enough to be skilled at them, to be proficient at those lifts. And then the rest of the program just needs to be spent getting super jacked. Not just for like aesthetic purposes, but like long term, a bigger muscle has the potential for more strength. Hypertrophy is the thing we have the most influence over long term. So if you want to get super strong, you need to get bigger. So how do we set that up in a training program? Now, basically for my lifters and for my own training as well, and you can see examples, top link in the description of how I actually set this up. But basically I have a checklist of movements and I'll include that on screen. Basically, this checklist covers all of the major muscle groups that I don't think are really adequately covered by just squatting, benching, and deadlifting. Obviously, there are some exceptions here, and there are some things maybe you want to add in or pull out, but for the most part, I think this list covers most of the bases. We've got a lot of back work in different planes, delt work in every plane, we've got arm work, stuff like that, right? You could add in like some extra ab work, calf work, and stuff like that, but to be honest, I think you end up like doing so much stuff that the quality really suffers, and it's just a little bit too much to recover from. So these, I think, cover most of the bases. And then I would say anything that's not on this list, I feel like is adequately trained by squatting, benching, and deadlifting. So once we've got this list, I'm adding it in my strength programs just like the main work. I'm treating it just as seriously. So this stuff has fixed sets, reps, volumes, intensities. It has clear planning methods throughout the training blocks. It's not just tacked on at the end. It's treated as like very intense training, and we have a lot of intent and planning behind it. So for the most part, my recommendation is that you go through this checklist every week. You get it done by the end of every single training week, and you program it on the most part for 2 to 4 sets of 5 to 10 reps at RPE 6 and above, generally like RPE 7 to 10. Now, why is this my kind of like default recommendation? So compare your current example of doing like a 4x12 on an accessory versus my example of 2 to 4 sets of 5 to 10 reps. So let's just say 3 sets of 5, right? 4x12 versus 3x5. Which example do you think you can really lock in for and you can really hit with some intent, some focus, stay concentrated for the whole duration of the volume, and actually add weight and perform week after week? I would argue the 3 sets of 5. 4 sets of 12 is a lot of volume, and if you're anything like me, after set 1 or 2, I've got such a pump and I'm so fatigued that like the last 2 sets, I'm just going through the motions. I don't really put that much intent in, and over time, I don't really end up adding much like weight to that 4x12, so it doesn't really make a dent in my growth. Now, a lot of you have been kind of confused about hypertrophy by influencers, and they've told you need to be focusing on like the pump, the burn, the squeeze, and stuff like that. And that stuff's great as like the 1%, but muscles grow from mechanical tension overload. Like you need to be lifting more weight over time. That's why I set this hypertrophy stuff up in a bit more of a structured way, like this 2 to 4 sets of 5 to 10 reps, because going lower reps, it means we can really focus on what matters for growth. We can lift more weight over time. We can perform well. We can take the sets close to failure. We can put loads of intent in, because if I know I've only got 3 sets of 5, or let's say 3 sets of 8, I know that I can stay locked in for all of those sets. Sometimes I'm only doing like 2 sets, and it means I can hit them super hard and really focus on what matters for getting bigger. And I promise, if you use this approach, and just like for an example, let's say your bicep curls, you do like 3 sets of 6 reps or 3 sets of 8 reps, and you take them from 10 kilos on week 1 to like 20 kilos 6 months down the line, your biceps will have grown so much more than you keep doing that 4x12 at the same weight and focusing on a pump, the burn, the stretch, and stuff like that. So I recommend 2 to 4 sets, 5 to 10 reps at RPE 7 to 10. It's really important that you take this stuff close to failure, because we need to recruit enough motor units. We need to create enough fatigue within the fibers that have large growth potential if we want to get bigger long term. So really, to simplify the stuff for you, if you want to build an aesthetic physique on these strength training programs, you need to treat the bodybuilding stuff just as important as the main lifts. Just follow my volume and intensity recommendations, 2 to 4 sets, 5 to 10 reps. Make sure you're pushing it super close to failure, at least within about 3 or 4 reps of failure. And I want you to obsess about beating the logbook every single training session. So that means that you're going to need to record the sets, the reps, the weight, and stuff like that. And I have spreadsheets for this for my clients and for the programs in the description below that you can go and steal and just use yourself. And you need to obsess about beating the logbook every time. And I want you writing down the weights, the sets, and the reps you're doing every session. I want you to go in knowing exactly what you have to do to make progress. Don't just go in and randomly do your accessories if you want to look jacked as well. Go in, review your program, know like last week I did a 3x8 at 10 kilo dumbbells. This week I have to beat that, so I have to go like 12, 10, 10 or 12, 12, 12 and really beat it every session. And if you take anything from this video, the reason that you aren't happy with your current physique progress following the programs you're on is because they are not designed to give you an aesthetic physique. They don't include appropriate bodybuilding accessory volume for you to actually build a significant amount of muscle. For most of you watching this, the squat, the bench, the deadlift is not enough to get an aesthetic physique. Neither is a randomly tacked on 4x12 on your accessories. It needs to be structured. It needs to be planned. You need to actually record what you're doing and obsess about progress, not about getting a pump and a burn. So really quick 30-second summary so that you can take it, go apply it to your program and get way more jacked than me. Do your strength stuff, sure, follow the strength side of the program, but then for the hypertrophy stuff, have this checklist that you go through by the end of every single training week. So basically everything needs to be ticked off by the end of the week. 2 to 4 sets, 5 to 10 reps, needs to be close to failure. Your number one focus needs to be on progressive overload, adding weight over time, week after week. Choose movements that you find comfortable, that you can perform week after week without pain. They're quite comfortable, they're stable. The target muscle is the limiter. So for example, like on a leg press, you want the quads to be the limiting factor there that make you fail the reps. And then just push them super hard for months and months. Don't mess around and change out the exercises. Just hit them for a really long period of time. I promise you'll get jacked. You'll build an aesthetic physique. You'll go from how I used to look following these programs to how I look more nowadays when I'm following a bit more of a smarter approach like the programs in the description below. So I have another video here for you if you'd like to understand a bit more about like muscle growth and hypertrophy training. If you have any questions, comments and stuff like that, post them in the comment section down below. Really hope this video helped you out, and I'll catch you in the next video.